Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Agility PR Solutions. We got another great presentation ahead for you today and an important topic for PR, and this one's titled The Right and Wrong Ways to Use Influencers for Your Brand. I am Richard Carafel, editor of Bulldog Reporter and the Daily Dog, one of the web's leading sources of PR and marketing communications news and insights. Agility offers a world-class suite of PR services, including media database, media monitoring, and measurement tools. You can find out about all of their offerings and how they can put together a package that's just right for you at agilitypr.com. And you can visit agilitypr.com/bulldogreporter to check out our homepage with all of our original PR articles and thought leadership pieces. And while you're there, you can sign up to receive the Daily Dog for free. We are very happy and excited to welcome today's guest presenter, Nicole Rodriguez. How are you today, Nicole?
I am great. Excited to be here. Thank you, Richard.
Awesome. Great to have you. Tell you a little bit about Nicole. She is the founder and CEO of NRPR Group in Los Angeles, where she helps bridge the gap between technology and various consumer industries for clients. She's also the founder of the Young Dreamers Foundation and the host of Perfect Pitch Radio, an internet radio show targeting PR and media professionals to help them step up their game when it comes to best practices. And she's also the creator and personality behind Practical Guide to Publicity, an award-winning video series helping CEOs, CMOs, and others understand the true benefits of utilizing PR and digital marketing. All right, and we're going to get started here in just a second. Let me first tell you that Nicole will be responding to your questions following her presentation, as always. So if you have one for her at any point during the hour, you can just click on the Q&A icon in the top right corner of your screen and type in your inquiry there. We're going to hold that Q&A until after she's finished with her formal presentation, but we will get to as many questions as we can, so be sure to get yours into the queue. All right, and without further ado, let's get started with today's presentation and learn some great tips about the best and worst ways to use influencers. And here's Nicole.
Awesome. Richard, thank you so much for the great introduction. And I'm hoping that everyone is listening attentively and taking copious notes. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about, especially since, being in the PR industry for almost 2 decades now. I would have to say that in the early 2000s, with the introduction of bloggers coming into our world, and then soon social media platforms, between marketers, PR people, advertisers, we were all trying to figure out where these people fit into our world. And I feel like now, majority of the companies and the brands that are getting it right understand that working with influencers is something that requires great two-way communication and strategy, and has also been a great catalyst for PR and marketing people to work a lot closer together, just because now there's so much overlap. So without further ado, I definitely want to share some tips and things that I've seen with regards to things being right and clearly things being wrong, so many of you who are listening do not have to suffer from some of the things that we had to learn and figure out in the early days. I think now influencer relations has matured, and people are really starting to utilize it in a way that can not only help drive buzz for brands, but also just sales, awareness, all of that stuff when done right. So I'm going to toggle over this and get to the first slide here. So what we're going to cover today is, giving you a clear, vision of what an influencer is and what they can actually do in terms of, strategies and different tactics for different brands. It's important to know how to find the right influencers. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation. You're going to have to do some digging. It's almost like setting your brand up with an influencer is kind of like the dating game. You got to make sure that the chemistry is there. We're also going to cover what you should consider before engaging influencers. And then, that fun topic, especially with regards to budgets and things with marketing. Should you pay influencers? And if so, what's a fair amount? And then, of course, with all of this being so important to many of the brands that we represent, how do we actually track their impact and why is that important? So those are all of the things that we're going to go over today before we get into the Q&A. So first things first, it's important to know what an influencer is. So kind of pulled together this very brief synopsis, but at the end of the day, a social media influencer is usually described as someone who has an impact or an influence on the decisions of his or her social media followers. So I think with the introduction of celebrities, I mean, people do know what celebrities are, right? And I think with blogs, like we said, and social media platforms being added into the mix, it was like these newly found mini celebrities in certain industries were popping up here and there. I think people like Jeffree Star and Patrick Star are really good examples of little mini celebrities who came out of the woodworks through social media because they had an opinion and they had a voice when it came to beauty and cosmetics, and now they're moving into more mainstream, and they're certainly affecting the purchasing decisions of a lot of the people who follow them, especially the younger generation. So this influx of social media influencer, we look at them as being little mini celebrities in their respective industries that they like to focus on. So that in and of itself has opened up a wide range of ways that PR and marketing folks can work with them, right? So what are some of the ways that they can work with your brand? What I've seen has been a very popular thing lately is Instagram takeovers, where you basically would hand over your Instagram page to a social media celebrity who has a large following and clearly has influence on the people who pay attention to what they say. Instagram takeovers can do anything from build the audience to getting people to react regarding a certain product or something. So usually if someone's taking over, you kind of give them full reign with a little bit of parameters around what it is they can and can't do, right? Making sure they have guidelines. But that has been a very popular thing for brands to work with social media influencers on. I've seen Twitter parties and Twitter group chats be a very common way to utilize the voices of social media influencers. And that's pretty common, I would say, more around the mom blogger community, or even people who are focusing on sports and athletes and fitness and lifestyle and wellness, mental health, and a lot of things with regards to profession, people's professions. There are really great ones around PR that I've joined. So I think influencers either hosting the Twitter chat or agreeing to be part of it has been a really great way for brands, again, to build their Twitter activity, build that following, and then just increase engagement overall. Other things also have been just making sure that they post. I mean, that's a very simple thing, working with influencers depending on their most popular channel of social media, usually asking them to post something at a certain time with certain hashtags and certain copy is also very common. So you can ask them to do that. You can also ask them to repost, regram, retweet your stuff. Again, just making sure that you're giving them parameters, but those are things that technically social media influencers can do. Many of them still also have blogs, so asking them to write, whether it's just including some mention of your brand or a product, or maybe some sort of theme or contest that you guys are trying to push. Utilizing their platform with a blog is also very important. Reddit has become a very popular social media channel for influencers to kind of just engage in chats, but the possibilities are really endless, and I think that's why it makes sense to work with these influencers on a one-on-one basis to make sure that you are clear on what it is you need from them, what it is you want to get from the experience, and that's why all of the back-end work that we're going to go into is so important. So let's start with where we find them. Back in the day, I remember trying to figure out which mom bloggers had the biggest influence. I was building the Yahoo motherboard. It was a really, really great kind of first pass at what Yahoo wanted to do with regards to utilizing, you know, bloggers and people who had voices outside of your traditional celebrities to drive interest in all of the different things that Yahoo did. You know, from Flickr being one of their products that they own, to Yahoo Messenger, which that kind of dates me, was a very popular messaging platform that many of us used. They had asked my firm at the time where I was with Voce Communications, you know, to figure out some way to utilize their voices in their platforms. And I honestly remember just thinking, wow, we are going to have to, one by one, look for these people, look for their followers. Facebook was probably one of the biggest ones that we, you know, paid attention to, because that was a very popular platform for them. Also Twitter, we wanted to make sure that they had a strong voice in Twitter. But what did that mean? That meant we literally had to go one by one, looking up the people that we knew, looking at their number of followers, looking at the engagement, tracking that in a spreadsheet, getting their email, and then taking it from there. So the beauty is you have awesome tools now that take a lot of the legwork out. Agility PR Solutions, I'm just going to plug you guys, because how beautiful to have the Connect database that offers almost 820,000 unique influencers from across multiple industries. So wish we would have had that back in 2008, but but things like that, if your brand is able to take advantage of having a database that helps you suss and search and sort of quantify on the numbers side of things the influence that some of these people have, that is a great way to start. Clearly, as PR people, we are also familiar with pitching influencers, especially those who have blogs. So we have, you know, easy ways of getting their emails and clearly seeing their influence through the interaction that we have with them when we pitch and see when they write and all of that. So that's clearly a very just easy and old school way to help identify and find the right ones. But I think what's the most important is that you are clear first on what is right for you and your brand before you go searching. Even before you get into the Connect platform or the database, are you looking for people who cover beauty and fashion tips? Are you looking for someone who has influence over, I don't know, healthcare, wellness, mindfulness? Knowing all of those things before you jump onto Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or dive into the database to search, it's important that you know first what a right fit looks like to you so that it makes your life easier. I think also one tip that I would give is starting small and building from that. With the Yahoo motherboard, when we first built that, we started with 10 very solid moms. Obviously, we probably reached out to about 20 to ask them if they wanted to work with us, because there was no payment that was going to be given at that time. It was going to be, hey, we're going to give you insights into what Yahoo is doing early, and we're going to give you free access to some of our tools, but there was no compensation at that point. And so how do you motivate someone we had to make sure that there was enough that we were giving to them and that we knew what was clear in terms of what we wanted in return. So just make sure that on your side, knowing how to balance 10 and doing that right helped us build it up to 50, and we killed it because we set that foundation. So for any of you who are being asked by your, whether it's a client or if you're in-house, your CMO, CEO, or the powers that be, I always encourage people, if you're going to start with your first sort of influencer program, start small, build a foundation, make sure that it works, and then build on top of that. So that takes us into the next slide, which are the important things to consider, before engaging. Brand alignment is really important. It's one of the Maori sisters. There's Tia and Tamara. I can't remember which of the two is lactose intolerant, but one of the two is lactose intolerant and has been open about that on social media. And for those of us who follow these, celebrities or even social media influencers, to see that one of the twins had done a deal with Dairy Queen, in the back of my mind, I just thought, oh goodness, someone did not do their homework, and one of them was not honest about the lactose intolerance issue. I think brand alignment is super important, because what happens is those people who do know of those issues look at the brand partnership with that specific person, and they look at it as false. And they clearly, it's not believable at that point. So just make sure that you are doing your due diligence well before engaging with the people, to make sure that you feel good that they, in terms of values, how they speak, what they do, you're clear on that, so that you're just not jumping into conclusions because you see that they have a high following. Timing is also super important. Knowing that just because you reach out to a potential influencer that you want to work with doesn't mean they're going to respond right away. They also have other things that they're dealing with, whether it be personal or professional. There are also key times of year that take people offline, or such as the holidays like now. So I always encourage people, if you want to engage with influencers, there's no such thing as being too early. So do the homework, spend time doing that without the stress of a big timeline and big target date in front of you. Obviously, if you know that there's a launch happening in 3 to 6 months, give yourself that time to at least, spend 30 days on engaging and trying to get that dating process in order, because many of these influencers also have managers that you have to go through, and all of these obstacles can just lead to time being taken with contracts and all of these things on the back end. So just give yourself ample amount of time, and if you have a client or again, if you're in-house, a CEO or CMO who is insistent that something be turned around quickly, this is where it's time where we kind of voice that and say, if we want to do it right, we need to make sure that the timing is done well, or it's going to look sloppy, because I've definitely seen that happen. And no one wants to lose money because we're rushing and because there's sloppiness. The other thing to consider is not just the numbers. People have gotten savvy about, I guess, buffing their social media following. They know how to buy followers because it's possible. It's unfortunate, but you can do it. And for those who are buffing their numbers, you can tell through the actual comments and true engagement, especially on things like Instagram, where if you have 10 million followers and you've got 3 people liking your post and maybe 1 commenting, that 10 million is false. So make sure that you guys are looking less at the numbers and more on the engagement and the true comments that are coming from those people. Because technically, if you want to align yourself with an influencer, you want to make sure they have real influence and not fake followers. Another thing is shares. When they post something on Facebook, when they post something on Twitter, when they put something up on YouTube, you should be able to see how far that bit of content goes, or those bits of content goes, through the actual shares. So again, above just likes that that person would have, how often are their followers sharing what it is they put up? That's very important, because if you ask them to put something up, a specific post that is pointing back to your product or brand, you want to know that you are casting a wide net through their network. And then under that, I would say, of course, likes. No one is a true influencer with just 20 followers and, 5 of them are family members and whatever. You definitely want to make sure that there is a significant amount of likes. I would say starting in the early thousands, depending on if you want to work with micro influencers or macro influencers. Sometimes the ones with, again, a lesser amount of likes, but highly, highly engaged people that are within the target market you want to hit. When building your platform, don't discount those people, because oftentimes those are going to be the ones who are easiest to work with, and they will grow with you. We've definitely seen that happen. Another thing before engaging, you want to make sure that these people look at themselves and their social platforms as a business. Do they have case studies? They don't have to be formal case studies where it's in a PDF and they send that to you or whatever, but do they have the ability to send you examples of really great campaigns that they engaged with that either led to sales or whatever KPI that you guys are going to be measuring? Show that they have done it before. And if they haven't, or they don't have those case studies, well, then that affects how much you are going to give them. And we'll get into that when we talk about compensation. So how and why should you track their impact? I always say the important reason why is you want to know where your time and money are being spent. And in order to know that, you also want to know that it's being well spent, right? So you don't want to engage with social media influencers just to watch your money go down the tubes, because I've seen that. There was a campaign we worked with. I was at another agency, and I just got into the account when they told me, yeah, the budget is $40,000, and we're giving 3 YouTube influencers, that amount of money. And I was like, $40,000 is a lot. Do you really think these YouTube people are going to drive more than $40,000 of sales for the product? And they're like, well, we weren't really thinking about that. We just want to make sure that we have cool videos. And I was like, oh, dear God. I honestly wanted to cut it, but I had come into the account so late that things were in motion. The sad thing was a $40,000 spend only led to $400 of sales for this new product they were launching. And it made me feel ill, because I saw it coming based on what the sort of social media company that they had brought in to kind of lead strategy had led them to do. There was no clear path from the YouTube video where people would go to physically purchase online. So, if you are not on the back end building ways that you can track those results, and you're not thinking about the results, you're going to have some angry executives who come back, and they're going to be able to, see through any fluff, like, oh, it was great, it got shared this many times, and they're going to come back and say, and how did that help us? So, there are tools within all of the native apps that help you on the back end check for engagement and very basic things. Clearly, if you can connect to Google Analytics, making sure that you see from any social media platform where web traffic is being driven and to what pages, that's very important. I'm a big fan of AirPR, which actually helps on the back end. That tool measure not just campaigns, but the regular activity from social media and shares. So I'm a big proponent of signing up with AirPR for that. And then Create spreadsheets if you have to. Create trackers. Create ways to keep these influencers accountable. Hey, did you ask them to put up a blog post at least once a month? Did you ask them to at least put up one social media post on Instagram once a month? If you are putting that in an active tracker and you can show that back to the powers that be who control your budget, you're going to be able to show that not only are you spending money on these people, but you are getting a return, and that's very, very important. Finally, speaking of compensation, should social media be influencers, or should social media influencers be paid? Keep in mind that when it comes to many of these influencers now, a lot of them have made their social media presence their job. So those who actually do take it seriously, you can usually tell. One of my favorites to work with is Stuart Brazel. She is a doll face. She used to write for a blog called Dirty and 30, which was a great blog all about, just women and life issues and, finding the right restaurants and trying the right, things. And so then she created her own blog, which was Stuart Says, and continued to build her social media presence through now going from, a young 30-year-old to a mom who now is, doing great work with tons of brands, but she does it responsibly and she is compensated well. And because she looks at her personal influence as a business, she demands some sort of compensation because she knows what she can do for brands. So she's not the only one, and keep that in mind, because I have worked with many brands who are like, hey, talk to these influencers for us and tell them they're going to get a free nail polish if they put this up. And then I'm thinking, many of these people know their worth. And because many of them do, we have to work around that. So if you're looking to engage influencers and not pay them, know that you're going to be working with the influencers who are not as, I don't want to say qualified because that's not the word, but know that costs will vary based on their experience and based on their proven ability to drive whatever KPIs you guys want to measure, right? So again, this is why you want to make sure that when you're engaging, you ask them whether or not they have these case studies, because then at that point, that's where you can negotiate, because budgeting is absolutely key. Before you do this, you also want to estimate what your ROI might be. Depending on how many influencers you bring on board, you want to figure what the return on investment is. And that doesn't always have to be money. If you are looking to engage with them just to help you build your social media presence in a meaningful way with real followers, well then the ROI is a bump up in your followers. So you should be able to guess based on how many followers they have, a certain percentage, usually looking at anywhere from, 3 to 5% to start is kind of healthy, knowing that people have very short attention spans, and nowadays they need to see a brand almost, I believe now it's up to 7 to 24 times before they take action. So give yourself time and make sure that you're clear on what you want from these micro or macro influencers, and based on that and based on their experience is how much you can negotiate for payment. And then make sure that's in writing. You are engaging with people who sometimes they're very young, and so yes, sure, they can be trustworthy in things, but many of them have parents and managers and lawyers and things that get involved. This is a business transaction, so I always recommend that you have some sort of contract that covers you, covers them, and makes you feel comfortable with moving forward with that relationship. It's not the sexiest part of what you would be doing to engage, but definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked, because we've seen it go awry. So overall, I think I'm a couple minutes early. When I first practiced, it was about it was about 35 minutes. So we're a little bit early with kind of ending with what I wanted to go over. So with that, we can open it up to, I believe Richard was going to take it from here and go from there. But I think that pretty much sums up what I wanted to share in a nutshell. So I hope that was very helpful, and I look forward to answering any specific questions that you guys have when that comes.
That was great, Nicole. That was fantastic. Thank you. And those were some terrific tips and some awesome insights into working with influencers. I know it's a tricky marketplace, and it's still a rather new one. So those were some great ways to go about approaching engaging influencers, figuring out how much they're worth, and so forth. So thank you for sharing all that. Okay, and we're going to indeed, as Nicole said, get started with our Q&A here in just a second. Let me remind you that if you have a question for Nicole, and there's certainly a lot of approaches to some of the things she said, make sure you click on the Q&A icon in the top corner of your screen and type in your inquiry there and send it to all presenters, and we'll see them there. So we look forward to seeing some questions. And but first, here's Emily Walsh from Agility PR Solutions, who's going to tell us about a little information, give us some information about how you can target some of these influencers for your brand's needs and how to track them down and get them engaged. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much. And thanks for that presentation, Nicole. Like Richard was saying, really fantastic tips. I know a lot of people are going to walk away from here with a lot of great ideas. So looking forward to diving into the Q&A in just a second. So as we just learned, working with the right influencers is so important to your success. Whether you're trying to pitch journalists, sort of the original influencers, or to share a story or work with social media influencers and bloggers to boost your brand or expand your audience, when it comes to influencers, the right fit is absolutely crucial. But the research involved, like Nicole was saying, in finding them can be really tedious, it can be really time-consuming, which is why a media database can be really a game-changing tool. So here are a couple things to keep in mind if you're considering a database or a new media database. With Agility, when you search for contacts by keyword, we can scan billions of articles to find the journalists and influencers who have recently written about your particular topic. So these powerful search capabilities are a must if you want precise, custom results that deliver contacts who are really a perfect fit for your brand and your message. And once you've found who you can work with, having a way to quickly create lists and reach out to them directly to build relationships makes everything much easier. And then plus, having a live social stream feature is critical because here you can not only find new influencers who are talking about your keywords on channels like Twitter and online news, but also keep an eye on their activities so you can learn more about them to tailor and sort of perfect your pitch for when you start your outreach. So if you're interested in finding a database that can check all of those boxes for you, then Agility PR Solutions can help. But don't take our word for it. Dive in and try it out for yourself. You can get a free trial of our media database and experience just how easy influencer searching and outreach can really be. And with that, thanks again, everyone, and don't forget to sign up for your free trial using the link in the chat section.
All right, great. Thank you, Emily. Good information there. Agility does have some great solutions for some of the issues that you experience with influencers. Okay, wonderful. All right, so it is time for the Q&A with Nicole, and it's time to get your questions into the queue, so please go ahead and do that. In the meantime, I've got a couple of questions for you, Nicole. You're talking about how to get influencers to be more authentic, and I'm wondering if this is even an issue, because I know influencers obviously can be thought of as paid participants, but I guess what I'm trying to say is you want your influencer to come off as more of an authentic fan of your brand. Is that something that you should be concerned about when you're dealing with influencers, or are there, I should say, any ways to take measures to try to avoid that? Or is it okay if they come across that way? Do people not expect it differently?
Yeah, no, that is a really, really great question. And that takes me back to the point that I was making around brand alignment and the fact that you have to do your own homework in order to know whether or not that alignment is truly accurate. The Kardashians are constantly being asked to tout products and different things and whatever because it's a crazy influence that they have over their followers, and brands know that. And the sad thing is that you have brands that you can clearly see didn't quite do their homework. The Kardashians are not going to always say no to a big lump sum of money if something seems interesting. But, to me, I've seen so many times where it's like, yeah, you just got paid for this great, tummy thing, or I believe it was a fat-burning lollipop or something that Kim Kardashian had gotten slack for. That, there are people in the community who are like, wait, I thought you were embracing your curves and all of these things, and now you're telling us that we should be eating these fat-burning lollipops. And it just, you gotta do your homework on the back end and know that if you want that influencer to be authentic, then oftentimes, I can't speak for every influencer, but they're going to say yes if you're gonna hand them money. So be sure that before you hand them money, that you yourself are very clear on their audience, who follows them, and what might not come across as authentic, because you're essentially owning the final decision if they've already said that they want to accept money for that engagement, if that makes any sense. So I think that's where homework comes in. Because it's not going to be hard to ask someone to do something if it's not fake. If someone really truly is into organic vitamins and tries your vitamins and falls in love, you'll never have to ask them to fake a thing, because they're going to actually like it and want to share that with people because it's coming from a true place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Nicole. And this, we have a question here from Michelle that actually segues perfectly into what you were describing there. She asked, is looking at who's already talking about your brand or competitors a good place to start when you're getting into influencers?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's a really nice, it's almost like a hint. If someone discovers a service or a platform, and because they tried it, and they weren't asked at all to say anything, and they did, and they had a great experience with it, and especially if they tagged you, that's a great hint that they themselves, knowing what influence they have, are there trying to help their followers, find the right products and or service, and you have the solution. So that is absolutely a really great way. You can always thank them on the back end. Hey, so-and-so, thank you so much for tagging us. Didn't know that you were a huge fan of, I don't know, our restaurant or whatever it is. We would love for you to come back. We'd love to pick your brain. We would love to find out if there's anything else you see we could be doing on social media that maybe you could help us with. Look at it as a great way to open up the conversation because they've technically started it. So absolutely, I recommend that 100%.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. And thank you for that question, Michelle. And here's another question that builds on that one. We're talking about the worth of an influencer and how to determine what their value is, perhaps generally, but especially to your brand. So this is a good question from Kelly. She wonders, how do you determine fair compensation for an influencer? Obviously, they're going to tell you what they're worth, perhaps, but are there other ways to find out? Is there a formula to use as a guideline, at least as a starting point?
I say make sure that your budget is clear first. It's like going to the mall and knowing that you can't buy everything. but that you're going to go to the mall with a specific budget, and you're going to buy as many products, hopefully, as you can with the certain money that you have. So if you are clear on the budget that was set for you by the powers that be, no matter what, you'll be able to figure out from there whether or not you can engage. You know, there are going to be some high-priced influencers that, you know, if your budget is $50,000, and for one social media post, which I have seen it and it's insane, but some celebrities like literally will charge $40,000 for one Instagram post, and they won't promise anything. To me, that is the craziest gamble on the planet. And I don't recommend that, because it's like a one and done thing. I believe J-Lo is somewhere around $30,000 for one Instagram post. So again, if your budget is $50,000 and you want to make sure that it, it can stretch as much as humanly possible, you have to decide whether or not, when someone comes back to you and says, well, for one Instagram post, it's $10,000. And yes, I do promise an ROI, and here's what I've done with other brands. Okay, great. Well, then that's one at $10,000. And then you look at the other ones who seem aligned with your brand, and if they are charging less, great. Again, that's where you get to negotiate and decide, but you must have your own set budget first before you can figure out whether or not you can kind of do the dance with some of these influencers. And you'll determine the value based on any case studies that they've given you. You know, they'll give you the price, and then when you ask, okay, is there sort of any proof, any other times that you've done this where you know, you can replicate that same success? And again, if they can come back and they say yes, well, then you're going to feel a lot better spending that money. If they come back and say, nope, I'm just going to put up an Instagram post and whatever happens, happens, then that's up to you to be able to determine whether or not that is of value to you if you want to take that gamble. Hope that answers.
Right, yes. Mm-hmm. Those are great insights, good advice on valuating an influencer. That's great. Yeah, thank you, Nicole. And thank you for that question, Kelly. And an excellent one there. Okay, let's keep going then. Here's a great question from Emma, and she wonders, would you recommend only engaging with one influencer or numerous ones? I guess, should you specialize in one influencer brand, or just kind of spread the joy? She says she works in automotive PR, and there's a very limited number of automotive influencers. So would you recommend that our client engages with just one of the most relevant ones, or one of the most appropriate ones, or more than one?
That is a really great question, especially for, you know, very niche industries. My recommendation, just speaking from experience, is that there's a certain power in working with small numbers first, starting with 3. I think if you're just starting with 1 and you find that that doesn't go well, you can lose the trust in those people who, again, are making the financial decisions, right? It almost opens up your ability to almost sail on one if that's going to happen, and have 2 others who might come up, right? So it's going to be a learning thing. So I would say, obviously, set your budget first. Set your intentions. Know what it is you want to see from the engagement, and know that you're going to evolve and grow with these people. And if you start with 3 and one of them doesn't work out, but 2 do, then you still have the trust of the people who are controlling your budgets, and you then at that point have a small little pool to learn from, to where if you wanted to replace that 1 and keep it at 3, or maybe you want to soon grow it to 5, you're going to have more data to base those decisions on versus just starting with 1 and taking a gamble by putting all your eggs in one basket to start.
Okay, that's great. And fantastic, Emily. Rather, Nicole, you really got a great handle on this stuff. And thank you, Emma. Good question there. All right, and I just wanted another good one. This is from Rebecca, and she's wondering, how do you recommend calculating the engagement rate of an influencer? She says there are several formulas out there, but what's the most accurate?
Yeah, that is a great question. For me, there are, I rely a lot on tools, and like I said, the native tools that each of these social media platforms have. I know Snapchat doesn't really have really great sort of back-end measurement data yet. They definitely should, as they're working with their influencers, but Instagram does, Facebook does. You can even ask them for their own insights. Like, can you please let me know, what's your most popular post? They can share those insights with you on their back end without you having to log in. So, measurement can be done in so many ways, but I definitely recommend that whoever is on your web team is clear, and whoever is on your social media team is clear in terms of how they can get you the access to that data that matters. Again, if you're trying to drive downloads, you're trying to drive traffic to your website, or you're trying to drive numbers, it really, really depends on what platforms that you use, but just make sure that the native tools are always being considered, because that's free. Again, AirPR has really great ways to measure those things. Agility's Connect database, I'm sure on the back end, can give you some really solid just numbers and insights into these people. So it's a lot of plucking and pulling, but overall, again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. It really depends on your campaign and what it is you are trying to measure in general.
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. All right, and thank you, Rebecca. Great question. All right, let's go on to Emily's question here, and she asks, and I was wondering this too, do influencers have to disclose when they're working with your brand? If it's obvious they're in partnership, do you think that affects people's views on the brand, or are there ways to approach an influencer strategy more organically?
Yeah, the unfortunate part of it is if you're not transparent with people, they get upset. And I think that's why now people are being more transparent. It's like people almost demand it nowadays, and there are ways to be lightly transparent without saying, this is an ad. I really enjoy eating at, Ocean Prime Steakhouse. This was a really great experience. Like, there are ways to work with different brands and still be very, just like slightly transparent. Like, I was really excited to, be asked to give my opinion on, this great restaurant. So I'm creating this video on Snapchat. Thank you so much. Again, I'm staring at Ocean Prime restaurant bag literally in my house because that's where I ate dinner last night. So I'm just using this as an example because it's in my face. But, really excited to have been invited by the owners at Ocean Prime restaurant. The steak was incredible. The service was great, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for the invitation. And I look forward to continuing to go to your other restaurants, blah, blah, blah. That is natural, but also transparent that I was invited by the company to go try and share my opinion with these people. So I think that there are ways to go about it to make it cool, but that you should be transparent when you're working with these brands, because if someone finds out or they call it out, like, you were probably paid by Coca-Cola to say that, it just doesn't look good on Coca-Cola's side. So just err on the side of caution with that honesty is usually the best policy, but there are very cool ways that you can go about it.
Right, yeah, I guess subtlety is the name of the game there. So you don't necessarily have to come right out and say, this is Kim Kardashian and I approve this message or anything like that.
Exactly.
All right, good. All right, good. All right, thank you. And thanks for that question, Emily. All right, here's another good one from Simon, and he's, first of all, says thanks for the insight, and especially the reviews around payments and contracts and the KPIs involved. And he says he's in the B2B space, and what's your view on dealing with B2B influencers? Obviously, consumers seem to be miles ahead, the B2C industry, miles ahead of the business industry. So do you have a view on the best way to engage with brands and influencers at that level?
Sure, yeah, and you're welcome, Simon, for sharing those tips. I like helping people. So in the B2B space, it's a little bit different just because often with these people making business decisions, you really have to identify who has the loudest voice and the truest opinions, right? A lot of influencers on the B2B side that we work with are sometimes analysts and oftentimes media. You know, again, because they have their voice, they have platforms to speak. You know, you can look at them as, again, like little micro influencers, but you're going to want to look for the people who have the loudest opinion and, again, are more aligned. So maybe it's just someone who, let me try to think of a B2B situation. See, one of our clients, HelpShift, they are in-app customer support and chats, right? So people who make these decisions on whether or not to plug in the HelpShift sort of solution within their app are oftentimes the developers or the engineers. So the people who influence them are other people in that industry. So you'll find that many engineers will be in chat groups. You can find them online. Reddit, like I said, is a great platform for people to just kind of openly share their opinions on things. Are they commonly commenting on industry articles? You know, if there is a customer magazine article that pops up and there are engineers who have opinions about certain things, and then you notice that these engineers are opinionated across their social media, they might not have even looked at themselves as an influencer, but you can certainly engage and say, look, I noticed that anytime a great article about customer service and chat is worked, you know, or is discussed in an article, you seem to have an opinion, and our opinions are definitely aligned. We understand that, you know, these are frustrations that you often feel. We'd love to work with you in some sort of way, whether it's having you guest blog for our site, just sharing your personal opinions, whether it's putting something up on Facebook. If we were to write something, would you share it? So you can get super creative. Again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all, but humans are humans. They like to be recognized, and if you recognize that on the B2B space, they do have a voice and it's active, then figure out how and where that can work. And it probably won't be like, hey, let me put something up on Instagram, a picture of me coding, right? But they can write for your blog, or they can be a guest tweeter in a Twitter chat around your solutions or whatever. So the cool thing is that you can get creative based on what it is you need or where you see they can fit.
Cool. That's awesome advice. All right, great. Thank you. I'm sure that's good advice for you, Simon, and thanks for that question. All right, let's see. I just wanted to point this out. Someone shared from the Mitchell team, shared this on our chat board about what I was talking about before, about making an advertiser disclose themselves, or rather an influencer disclose themselves. And the Mitchell team says, per FTC requirements, all sponsored posts have to have #ad in the post before you click to see more. So he says, they say it's not always enforced, but it is a requirement. So I just wanted to share that with everybody who's wondering. Okay, and let me ask you this question, Nicole. You were talking about writing blog posts and how you can get influencers to write blog posts for you to help promote their posts. And you just talked about how you could actually put some information together in a post and have them share it. So is that a good practice, a best practice too, perhaps, if you want your influencer sharing blog posts about you and then you want them to say certain things, obviously, can you just send them a blog post that you've written and ask them to share it?
Yep. I mean, literally, again, that's why many of these things that you want in writing, you know, in the contract, that if there is an Instagram post or a tweet that you want them to regram or retweet, if there are specific posts that are being written by your executives or experts that you want them to share across social media, it's all about being clear on what it is you want, making sure it's in a contract, and then making sure that they stick to it. And obviously, before they sign a contract, they're going to agree or not, but you know, you should definitely ask. There's so many creative ways to ask them for their help and influence, and the more content and things they're sharing, the better.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's great. Great insights there. All right, thanks. Let's ask this question from Hannah. She's wondering about hosting giveaways. What are your thoughts on giveaways and partnering with influence, perhaps, for those as a strategy?
Sure. I mean, again, it depends on the product. I can see that working well, obviously, or with a new product. I see a lot of that in like the lifestyle sort of fashion, cosmetics, different things like that. Sure, people do it. It's a pretty common practice, and oftentimes what I've seen is, okay, you need to follow me here, follow this brand. You also need to follow them on Twitter, and then you need to comment here in order to potentially win this new makeup palette or whatever. So definitely, it's a common thing that's done. Just making sure that you're clear on the execution, and that where and when there are winners, I always recommend that people announce that on social media so it makes it believable. So many people won't go through the rigmarole of following, liking, commenting, all that stuff, because they don't believe that the contest is true, or that, oh, well, no one ever wins. I never see who wins. So really keeping that in mind, that if you do want to create contests, maybe it's the 12 days of Christmas and every day there's a winner, make sure that it's clear who the winner is and give them props so that it motivates other people to dive in that next day. So not just about the giveaway and picking someone, but also making sure that you make it clear that people do win so that they'll participate more.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, thanks. And I guess that's a challenge for giveaways in general. Sure. If you want to get them to work and get people to engage with you on that level about them. All right, good. All right, so we're about to reach the top of the hour. So I just wanted to ask you, Nicole, if you want to just play a quick round of rank the social networks as far as influencers go. Obviously, if you've got something visual going on, then you're going to want to go with Instagram. And if you're a consumer blogger or influencer, that one seems to be the most popular. But generally speaking, how would you rank all of those social networks as far as influencer success?
Yeah, great question. So I would have to say that now at this point, Instagram just seems to be king because of what they've done to incorporate a lot of Snapchat's capabilities into it. So I think Instagram works for a lot of age ranges. So most young people, when they're diving into social media at first, that will usually be one of their first three that they will sort of gravitate towards. A lot of older folks, I don't want to say older, I mean, I'm almost 40 and I'm on Facebook, but you know what I mean? I think a lot of middle-aged and older people are moving over towards Instagram, so I don't feel like that only speaks to one audience, so I would have to say that that is a really great platform. I think Twitter is incredible. for people who are more open to discussing real issues and actually, really engaging. So if you want to have, media people and people who can have more mature kind of conversations, you're going to, I would say Twitter is a really great platform for that. Visually, I still think Snapchat is a lot of fun. I definitely love that platform. I haven't counted it out. I think they definitely need to work on the ways in which people can measure what they're doing on the back end. So I think once that is added, it can still be a pretty strong platform. So I love that one. For a lot of B2B stuff, I would still say that like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn are my favorites there. Again, you're going to get older, more mature audience, usually people who are more of the like decision-making level. So yeah, I guess if we're going backwards and we're ranking, Instagram right now, unfortunately or fortunately, is a phase, and then I would definitely go to Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and then utilizing LinkedIn where you're doing more of the B2B stuff.
All right, that's awesome. Those are great rankings. Thank you, Nicole.
Got it.
Okay, and okay, we have indeed reached the top of the hour here, and I want to thank Nicole Rodriguez for all that insightful commentary, all that fantastic advice, and those excellent high-level points that she shared. So thank you for spending some time with us, Nicole. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was great. Thank you guys for having me.
You bet. All right, wonderful. And just to let everyone know that you will be receiving a recording of this event to share or re-listen within the next 48 hours. This webinar series is brought to you by Agility PR Solutions. You can check out their services at agilitypr.com. We've got another great presentation coming up next month, and that is going to feature Markman Speaker Management founder Steve Markman, who will tell us about attaining speaking engagements to boost your visibility. So that one's coming up next month. You're going to be getting more information about that one. Watch your email and social media, and we look forward to getting together again then. So thanks again to Nicole Rodriguez, and thank you everyone for listening, and have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.